Good evening. My name is Shane Noem, and I'm the chairman of the Kenton County Republican Party. On behalf of our county's 66,000 registered Republicans, I want to welcome you and thank those of you joining us on the live stream for tonight's event. As a Republican Party organization, we do not endorse in primaries, and we do not dictate to our candidates and elected officials how they should vote, which gives us the ability to unite Republicans behind our nominees as they head into November. For Republicans, this is an important election, and for Northern Kentucky, it's a pivotal time. I'm excited that we can bring this event to you and our candidates and our community. I want to thank our partners at WCPO Channel 9, Link Northern Kentucky, and for our event sponsor, St. Elizabeth Healthcare. I also want to give a special shout out to the Northern Kentucky Community Action Commission, who runs this beautiful facility we're in tonight, the Lincoln Grant Scholar House. Built in the 1930s as an African-American school for children, today it serves as housing for single parents looking to advance their education. It is my privilege to introduce you to tonight's moderator and ringmaster, WCPO reporter and anchor, Evan Millward.
Shane, thank you so much. Everyone here, thank you. Good evening to you all. Welcome to Covington's historic Lincoln Grant Scholars House and this night's Republican debate in the Kentucky governor's race. I'm Evan Millward from WCPO 9 News, presenting this debate again in partnership with the Kenton County Republican Party and Link NKY. We are streaming on WCPO.com and all of WCPO 9's apps and streaming platforms, and on LinkNKY.com and Link NKY's platforms. So over the next 75 minutes, we will hear from three of the folks running for the Republican nomination for governor in the primary here, May 16th. With us tonight, David Cooper and Bob DeVore. Jacob Clark is running a little bit late, so if you have questions about infrastructure, save those for later. Gentlemen, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Thank you for taking the time to be here tonight.
Yes, sir.
We should point out we have invited all 12 candidates running for the nomination to our debates this week. You will hear from 4 more tomorrow night. The rest did not confirm their participation in the debate. So here are the rules for each of our candidates tonight. You will each have 60 seconds for opening statements, 60 seconds to respond to each question. There are short 30-second rebuttals should something come up where you are addressed individually in a response, and then we will close with 60-second closings. Tonight you'll be getting some questions from me, and then you'll be getting questions from Sherry Goodridge. She's the Kenton County Republican Party Vice Chair. Mark Payne is the Politics and Government reporter from Link NKY. And for those joining us here in the audience at the Lincoln Grant Scholar House, we'd ask that you hold your applause until the end of our debate tonight and refrain from any outbursts. A good time to remind you to silence your cell phones. All right, let's get to it. If you're ready, 75 minutes sounds like a long time. It goes by quickly. We wanted to try something maybe a little bit different tonight. So our first questions are a series of simple raising your hand questions. Each of you are Republicans. You have similar beliefs on many of the issues important to Republican voters. So we're going to play this game. Humor me. Raise your hand if you consider yourself pro-life. Raise your hand if you consider yourself pro-Second Amendment.
Of course.
Raise your hand if your faith impacts your beliefs. Raise your hand if you're in favor of lower taxes.
Of course.
And raise your hand if you don't like Washington liberals. Now that we've got that out of our system and we've set a foundation here, let's dive into what makes you unique, and let's talk about policies and issues facing the Commonwealth and how you might lead as governor. I'm going to start with Mark with the first question. Again, Mark Payne, Politics and Government reporter, Link NKY. Mark, go ahead and take it away.
Northern Kentucky often feels disconnected from Frankfort for a variety of reasons. How are you earning the votes of Northern Kentuckians?
We're going to go ahead and start. Candidate DeVore, you'll start first.
By making connections with real people. One of the biggest problems with candidates, they don't build strong relationships and have that real connection and showing where they need to go when it comes to Kentucky, and helping when it comes to economics, when it comes to education, when it comes to taking care of our senior citizens. All these things are interconnected with Kentucky, but if we can't connect with that, then what are we doing up here in the stage in the first place? And to me, we need to focus on how we take care of the crime area, especially in Louisville, and it's going across the whole Commonwealth. So we got to find ways to find out where that root cause is, and then focus on that, instead of just saying gun violence, gun violence, gun violence, and understand that there's somebody behind the gun and it's taking care of it, which is human violence, and focusing on how we take care of that person so we can stop the violence on the spot. And that's what we need to do. So thank you.
Candidate Cooper.
Yep. So, it's funny that you got Jacob, Bob, and myself here. Besides Brian Quarles, we're the only blue-collar candidates. And then Bob's a veteran, and I am a current service member. So, I think that I'm going to relate to the majority of Kentuckians. And I agree with Bob with connections. We need to continue having these sit-downs long after the campaign, instead of just doing it before the campaign. That way we can stay transparent, and we can, I always give out my phone number, so I want to be the most candidate that can be talked to the most. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the most, 22 seconds, I guess. I'm going to be the most, accessible candidate and just more relatable.
Mark, next question.
Northern Kentucky is the economic engine of the Commonwealth and the state's second most populated region. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in the state, and our labor force participation rate is the highest. What is your plan to continue that momentum and keep our state and region competitive?
We'll start with Candidate Cooper this time.
Roger. So I've always been a firm believer in, less government. So I'm only going to be available if the lower counties need me. With the Brents Bench Bridge, that's been a huge issue between northern and southern United States on the eastern side. We bring so much freight and stuff for over $400 billion worth of freight comes through us. So I think that's a huge help. Yeah. Well, sorry, I got lost in my thoughts there with the question.
So Northern Kentucky is the economic engine of the Commonwealth and the state's second most populated region. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in the state, and our labor force participation rate is the highest. What is your plan to continue that momentum and keep our state and region competitive?
Yeah, so again, just to support the Brents Bench Bridge corridor product, and basically just when counties need me, be there for them.
Candidate DeVore.
Well, it starts with education and economics. Right now, we are the highest, 46, when it comes to education. If you can't strengthen education, then how can you expand the opportunities for economics? And the point of the matter is, we got to do that. Now, lower taxes, we can learn from Northern Kentucky. What we need to do is look and see how they're working in that, and then maybe take that beautiful engine and then take it to the rest of the Commonwealth. But lowering taxes is one thing, helping out our senior citizens, for example, with property taxes when they dig deep in the pockets and try to pull out money to pay for a high cost of utilities. All these things right here is hurting them. So we need to take care of our senior citizens all the way down to even when it comes to the life itself. So building a strong economic thing, keeping it going, is going to help out the whole Commonwealth, and we can learn from Northern Kentucky.
Sherry, your question.
Yes. The founders of our country chose a representative democracy over direct democracy. Modern populism is calling for the governed to have more say and sway and input. As an elected leader, how do you balance your personal convictions versus those of the constituents that you represent?
Candidate DeVore, we'll start with you.
Well, first off, we need to have a common goal. And focusing on that, and then having interconnections with them is, like I said, you got to build relationships, even on and off season. And by doing that, then you can bring the ideas to the table and saying that maybe someone else will have the best idea, and then we discuss it, and then we bring it out to where that we can help out our Kentuckians have a better quality of life itself, especially when it comes to lowering crime and raising the quality of education. Our kids deserve the best when it comes to, including trade schools. But no one's talking about trade schools anymore. I mean, our trade system is getting smaller and smaller, and everything is going up. So why not broaden that opportunity for our kids to say, hey, I could be a productive citizen being a welder, plumber, bricklayer. All these things could really help out our economic growth. And then that's where we need to focus on when it comes to, again, economics and education go hand in hand.
Candidate Cooper.
Roger. So I'm a servant, and I've been a servant for the last 23 years almost in the Guard. So as an elected official, I feel like elected officials forget that, we work for you all. You all don't work for us. And a lot of discussions, a lot of issues, I've always said, we need roundtable discussions. We don't need just people just making decisions without getting the inputs of all sides of the issue. And to come off what DeVore said, trade schools has been one of my big things since day one on this campaign. I have been pushing for trade schools to be reintroduced into middle school, work with these kids through high school so that when they step out of high school, they're making $50,000, $60,000 a year instead of going $50,000, $60,000 into debt. And if we can give them enough confidence and motivation and the education, they could possibly start making their own small businesses, which would just help Northern Kentucky even more, or the rest of the state as well.
Do we get a rebuttal?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a 30-second rebuttal.
So, and the key point is this: we got to be able to relate to our constituents, our legislation, and hope we'll have common goals. If we can't come up with the same connections, we're going to have a problem at this point. They got to have the same. They have to have the same priorities that we all do when it comes to putting our kids first, making sure crime is low, and all these aspects have to flow. If we have connections between Frankfurt and myself, then we have a problem. And that's where we need to really begin.
Sherry, you have the next question. Nope, sorry, Mark.
Thanks, Evan.
Got lost.
COVID highlighted a growing child care crisis across our country and Commonwealth. Governor Andy Beshear has proposed universal pre-K as a solution, which many in the industry oppose as it could force the closure of many private providers. What are your proposals to fix the broken child care system?
Candidate Cooper, we'll start with you.
Well, as I just said, roundtable discussions needs to be heard. I've done the research on the universal pre-K, and I've talked to many people. One person on Facebook who's a child care, she owns her own business. There's good parts to it of universal pre-K, and there's bad parts to it. I like the idea because it could possibly save parents a lot of money, but I don't like the idea of losing the whole daycare vibe. I don't like the possibility of these daycares closing, people being out of jobs. We're just talking about how good we're doing up here. What needs to happen though is we need to have roundtable discussions with daycare owners so we can come up with a solution that benefits everyone, but more importantly, benefits the kids.
Candidate DeVore.
So one of the core values that we're really forgetting is the parents. We need to get them involved in the educational system where that if they want to pick up something that really helps their kid out, like my child, hooked on phonics, she loved it. She excelled in reading because she played it over and over again. And the point is, we're not getting those basic fundamentals where kids can excel. They're left behind because they don't have that early child opportunities to say, hey, I'm right there. I can read at first grade, second grade, third grade. This is cool. See kids be able to read at an even higher level than folks expect. But now they're looking at third grade level. So yeah, I think we need to find a way to fit the parents and early child care together, but customize it to where they can fit the need, even in different counties. And you talk about northern, even in southern counties, even the eastern counties, and find ways to help our kids grow and prosper in a better environment for learning.
Sherry, you've got the next question.
Kentucky is known for having some of the strongest laws protecting citizens' right to own and possess firearms and limiting abortions. What additional laws would you sign and what proposed laws would you veto related to guns and abortion?
Candidate DeVore, we'll start with you.
Well, I am a Second Amendment advocate for sure. But my thing is, I want to get counties involved in it to where they can be able to help train our citizens to be more responsible for that weapon. And to me, when you do that, you're really empowering them. And especially when you're educating our kids, because a lot of times they're so curious about what's going on, they don't understand that even a weapon that's unloaded, you should treat it as a loaded weapon. So if you can treat them and educate them on those aspects of life, you're going to see crime go down tremendously, and having respect for it, for what it is and what it can be when it comes to defending it. And even Luke 11:21 says, a strong man armed keepeth his place, his goods, and his peace. So those things right there, even the Bible states that we should be able to arm ourselves when it comes to defending our country, our community, and our own home. So yes.
Candidate Cooper.
So I'm afraid I'm against any red flag laws, anything that is not pro Second Amendment. I won't be signing. I will be vetoing. You know, it's funny this just came up. So this past weekend I had military duties, and we shot down at the range at Whitford Tech, qualified on our rifles and our pistols. Before every single day at the range, we had a big old safety briefing. One of them was going over the 4 fundamentals of gun safety. Treat every weapon as it's loaded. Keep your finger off the trigger. Don't point your weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy, and knowing your target and what's behind it. Because of that, we had no safety issues and no negligent discharges. So I am 100% for putting that gun education back into our schools. I mean, many years ago, we used to have gun clubs at the school, and they would shoot down the hallways with proper procedures putting up for safety. So there should be no reason that, you know, any Republican candidate should be against any Second Amendment laws.
Sherry, we're back to you for another question.
In 2019, Governor Bevin lost Kenton and Campbell counties, and his vote total decline from 2015 to 2019 was greater in Boone County than the other 2 counties. What is your plan to appeal to suburban Republicans that were turned off by his rhetoric?
Candidate Cooper, we will start with you.
So Bevin had me fooled. I actually campaigned for him, and I was really upset at a few things that he did. One of them, what he said about blaming the teachers for their kids being hurt because of these teacher sick outs. You know, obviously we want to prevent sick outs, so we need to work with the teachers. The hiring of friends who had 0 qualifications for some government jobs, he created a $250,000 a year job for a guy named Vivek Sarin, a $240,000 a year job for Daniel Dumas for adoption care. You know, and then his pardon party, at the end of his term, he pardoned 428 people, some family members of huge donors. I'm going to be honest, what needs to happen up here in Northern Kentucky is we need a candidate who is, again, most like Northern Kentuckians. I am a blue-collar guy. I'm in the military. I have graduated from a community college, blue-collar job all my life, and I'm the most like candidate or Northern Kentuckians.
Candidate DeVore.
Yes, sir. So what we need to do is we need to find ways to be more connected with Kentuckians and having regulations not only to help them out, but improve life itself and stop all this stuff that's happening with Andy. And he's coming up with these ridiculous laws and EOs that hurts churches and it hurts businesses and it hurts all these things. And I think he's lowering the possibility for us to succeed when it comes to the quality of life, even in our own small businesses. So we need to have a hands-off approach and let them grow and prosper in their own ways and things. And the environmental social government is one of the I call a Nazi. And they're the ones that are trying to control our environment, they're controlling our economics, and they're trying to control our banks and telling you you can't, for example, if a arms place wanted to get a loan, they can't do it because they're following the ES regulations, which is just ridiculous.
Candidate Clark, I'm going to, if you are ready, baptism by fire here, if you're ready to jump in, I'll have Sherry reread the question for you and let you jump in on this.
Sure. In 2019, Governor Bevin lost Kenton and Campbell counties, and his total vote decline from 2015 to 2019 was greater in Boone County than the other 2 counties. What is your plan to appeal to suburban Republicans that were turned off by his rhetoric?
Okay, I think a lot of what hurt him was there was a bridge, a toll bridge was one thing. The rhetoric, there was a lot against the teachers, things like that. My plan to not go down that path as he did is really just falls in line with the entire platform, just, policies that support liberty and prosperity and local government cutting the red tape for regulations. Certificate of need is kind of a big thing on my platform that I think, it's a totally different world now after the pandemic than it was in 2019, but definitely listening to the people more and not trying to be a bully.
You have 30 seconds rebuttal.
We will do 30 seconds rebuttal.
So he's right about that when it comes to certificate of need. And that when it comes down to if another county wanted to build a hospital, they should be able to do that. Why should you have other hospitals say no? I mean, the pandemic taught us anything. There's not enough beds to take care of the needs of our citizens. So if they want to build something that's going to help raise the quality of health care, why not? And the guy would eliminate the certificate of need altogether and then focus on what is best for our Kentuckians.
Next question goes to Mark.
Coal is a Kentucky signature industry, but the industry is shifting to embrace renewables like nuclear, solar, wind, and hydroelectric. How should Kentucky balance the decline of traditional fossil fuels and the growth of renewables?
As we move on down the line, candidate Clark, you are next in line if you are ready.
Okay, first of all, the move away from coal isn't exactly voluntary. It isn't exactly what the free market has determined. It's kind of been engineered through ESGs and different things, and a lot of government sweetheart deals propping up the electric cars and things like that. I would cut a lot of red tape. I would use executive orders to block terrible laws and regulations that have killed our coal industry and sold it out to Wyoming, and we would just let the free market decide what kind of energy that people want. One thing I want to get into is thorium molten salt reactors. Cutting the red tape for that, it's a safe alternative to uranium reactors, and it could let Kentucky dominate the energy industry, not only in coal but also in thorium.
Candidate DeVore.
At one time, we were so independent on our own sources that it lowered everything when it came to quality of life. Now it's the opposite. We need to go back to basics like I think nuclear would be a fantastic way to do that, as long as it's safe, if it lowers the cost of energy, and it gives a chance to help on the bills when it comes to utility costs. I mean, it's outrageous right now, and it hurts everybody, including the small businesses. When you walk into a restaurant, I mean, your prices went up by 25%. So renewable energy is going to help support our small businesses. In turn, it's going to help our citizens live a better life.
Candidate Cooper.
So I'm 100% for clean energy. Let's face it, it is our next process in technological evolution. But I'm not for it, and I'm not totally for giving up our fossil fuels, especially Kentucky's coal, not until we have a firm grasp on it. We won't for a while. We can burn clean coal. You know, other countries have been doing this for many, many years. The clean coal, it reduces emissions of ash and sulfur dioxide. We have electrostatic precipitators and fabric filters that remove 99% of fly ash. So I'm going to be defending Kentucky coal for as long as needs to be. When it comes to nuclear, though, the nuclear aspect, I would rather see, right now, nuclear technology is with fission. And if we could develop the possibility of nuclear fusion, which would put out more energy than what it takes to put into it, that would be the better step.
Thank you, candidate. Sherry, you've got the next question.
Over the last few years, much has been made of the terms woke, cancel culture, and ESG. How are your views on these different than your Republican opponents?
We will start with candidate DeVore.
The woke industry is destroying the family. We need to go back to our basics and have a mother and a father and focus on what we really need to do is talk about American values. Why not talk about what our founding fathers really strive for when it comes to independence, freedom, and liberty? And we need to teach our kids that they are special. Every kid can be special, but they have to learn their historical value to show them that we can be better in when it comes to having their own jobs, when being great parents. All these things come into one aspect of saying you're special. Instead of having boys going to girls' bathrooms and all this stuff right here that the woke is trying to throw down our throats. It's ridiculous. All they're doing is dividing us by race and color. We are all together under one common goal, the human race. We're all Kentuckians, and we can focus on what is best for our kids and let them excel and reach the stars when it comes to being God blessed.
Candidate Cooper.
So Webster's dictionary defines wokeness as the quality of being alert and concerned about social injustice and discrimination. I don't think any of the Republican candidates have a different view on wokeness. You know, when it comes to our schools, I don't agree with mandatory policies making me, you know, I have to say he, she, he, him, her, she. But respect goes both ways. Now, if someone says to me, hey, I am actually a boy, but I identify as a girl, I would appreciate if you would call me he, she, her, whatever. I'm going to show that person the respect as long as they show me respect. People can have differences of opinions and still like and love each other. And we have lost that as Christians and just as a people altogether. If teachers are teaching things that make some students feel personal responsibility for historic wrongs, that's actually woke teaching, and it's unacceptable, and it won't stand as I'm governor.
Candidate Clark.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of times it feels good to the ego to kind of be a bully about certain things, but I'm a Christian, and I believe a core part of that is, you know, we're not called to defeat people, we're called to win them. And there's a big difference there. Now, that doesn't mean that we must be weak. There's a big difference between being meek and weak. But as far as like in schools and things, you know, these are public servants, and they are supposed to accommodate the citizens, the taxpayers, the students, not the other way around. We had a teacher in my county that demanded that people call them a different gender each day, and that goes against my Christian beliefs and upbringings. And so it's different when it's that way coming to us.
Mark has the next question.
With the defeat of former State Representative Sal Santoro in 2022, the chairmanship of the powerful Transportation Budget Review Subcommittee went to a legislator from rural southern Kentucky. How will you assure that Northern Kentucky receives adequate support on Kentucky 536, the 4th Street Bridge, and yes, the Brent Spence Bridge project?
Candidate Cooper, you'll start.
So I know up here in Northern Kentucky we have TANK, the Transportation Northern Kentucky bus service, and places in the Kentucky they have similar things. I'd help them with anything they needed. The Brent Spence Bridge Corridor Project, Companion Bridge, you know, I was the only candidate that's been to any meetings about this, and I asked so many questions. You know, I know that that they were talking about tolls at one time, and you know, had I been any sort of elected official, I've been 100% against it. I do know that we got $1.6 billion in grants for it, and that's from the federal government. And Kentucky, we're only going to have to pay for 45% of it after those grants. So basically, again, I'm just going to be the leader that I am in the military, and when something needs to be done, I'll get it done. But I'm also going to leave it to the troops, to the counties, and if they need something, they can come to me, and I'll help them get it.
Candidate Clark.
Okay, so kind of a similar answer. You know, there's no way that a person at the top can correctly manage everything below. And that's why you have locally elected authorities. And what's become popular is, especially in my county, we hear it all the time, oh, we used to get plenty of funding when Bevan was in, now Bashir's in, and we don't even get a call back. So it's not just Northern Kentucky. Mm-hmm. But, you know, these people were elected at the local level because the community trusts them to make the right decisions. And I think the state needs to start making sure they have those resources. And if they tank, if they do the wrong thing, then those people can hold them accountable. But I would definitely want to support the local governments all over the state and in northern Kentucky to do the right thing. And if it fails, then it's on them, and the local people can elect someone new.
Didn't get it in time. Candidate DeVore.
My dad said, talk once and listen twice. So we need to come to the table and find out exactly what's going on and how we can fix it. But the problem is, every time we can make a promise, it's broken. So the citizens here deserve a better structure. They deserve better roads. They don't have to when they get up in the morning, they don't have to worry about hitting a pothole trying to go to work. And the point of the matter is that it's our responsibility to listen, and we come together and focus on what is best for Kentucky when it comes to highways and byways and bridges. And if we can't do that, then how can we serve our citizens in that fashion and making sure they can have the best when it comes to Kentucky and be able to travel from across the county lines and enjoy life itself and see the beauty of Kentucky. But if you have a bridge that's broken down, you can't do that. Or you have highways that have all these potholes, it's hard to travel. So why can't we see the best Kentucky by taking care of our infrastructure and making sure that we live a better life?
Yeah.
Candidate Cooper, you rebuttal?
Yeah, Jacob brought up something good. One of my friends in Pendleton County is a magistrate, and he told me something called the governor has access to discretionary funds. And when Bevin was in office, he got, whenever they needed money for something, they got it. But now with Beshear, it's hard to get anything out of him. So, I like to say that, I'm the most bipartisan candidate, and I would be the most bipartisan governor. There won't be no discretionary funds. It'll be, if the county needs it, I will try to give them a little bit where I can.
Sherry,
Yeah. And the point is with Beshear, I call that, is that he has a tight handle on the money, and he'll take care of his pet projects, but does he really care about Kentucky? Does he really care about the person down the street that really wants to go to work and he wants to drive on that road? No, he doesn't. All he cares about is what he could do in his next election, and he had his stardom when it comes to he wants to be president in 2040. It's just outrageous. So let's take care of Kentucky first and making sure that they live a better life.
Candidate Clark, you want to rebuttal?
I would just maybe add that, as far as the toll bridge issue, there's a great example of why it needs to be deferred to the local community, because maybe a toll bridge is the best choice, maybe it isn't. Those people in that community are the ones that need to make that decision. What if the alternative is some kind of higher tax, some kind of additional tax? So again, local government should make those decisions.
Sherry, you've got the next question.
President Trump's election paved the way for a record-setting conservative court system and overdue tax reform. His time in office also concluded with controversy around his election, 2 impeachments, and ongoing legal challenges. What lessons from Trump's time in office do you take into the Kentucky executive branch?
Candidate Clark, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I like to say that, I'll be 41 soon, and Trump has been the best president in my memory. Now, having said that, if I had been governor when he was president and he tried to ban the bump stocks, I would have laughed that off and passed an executive order to block that law. And that's just one example that's easy for a lot of people to understand how the executive orders are meant to be used. There's several things that should be blocked. But, when Trump campaigned in 2016, he said all the things that people wanted to hear about the Constitution, about being fed up. And I'm campaigning on that same kind of energy. We're ready to kick the door down and demand real liberty now and get back to the founding basic elements of our country and the Constitution. So I definitely want to, tail on what he started. So,
Candidate DeVore.
One thing about Benjamin Franklin, he was a diplomat, and he knew how to take care of people. He said that as long as you get behind closed doors, you could chew his butt out left and right. But we get out in front of the folks, you treat them with respect and dignity. And that's one of the things I think that even Bevins didn't understand, that when they faced the teachers, he got abrasive. And to me, you don't do that. You got to treat each other with kindness and compassion when it comes to dealing with problems that we face today. And even with I love President Trump, but a lot of times he was abrasive too. And a lot of times I think the ego outweighed his common sense. And the one thing about it is we need to be patient and have the common sense to deal with each other on a respectful manner. And if we do that, then we don't have the problems with teacher being angry with Bevins. And then we have another Republican governor even today. So, yes.
Candidate Cooper.
So President Trump was my commander-in-chief, and he treated the military with respect. He did a lot of good things for our country. He focused our national security on greater power competition like Russia and China, one of the most important policy shifts of our generation. He stopped focusing on the Middle East, and he focused on Russia and China. And Biden comes in, and now these two countries are friends, and China's bringing the Middle East together, and they're leaving the United States out. You know, if someone would have taken the phone away from President Trump, I truly believe, you know, he would have been a more popular president, and he would still be our president. With that and with ballot stuffing from the Democrats that I do believe, I've seen several documentaries. As a leader of a governor aspect and as a presidential aspect, we are supposed to, like DeVore said, we're supposed to, in public, treat them with respect, support them, but behind closed doors, pull them aside and tell them, hey, we need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Cher, I believe you have the next question too.
Kentuckians are constantly hearing about wokeness in this election cycle. I'm curious how you will defeat wokeness and how you quantify it. If a reporter would come up to you at the end of your first term and ask if you've defeated wokeness, what statistics or metrics will you use to show that you've accomplished your goal?
Candidate DeVore, we'll start with you.
By seeing the quality of life when it comes to education and seeing our students be so proud of who they are and what they can do, and they know their own American history. All this wokeness, you could go out the back door and throw it right into the trash and focus on the basics of the Constitution, reading, writing, and math, and show them they can be proud of who they are, meaning Kentuckians, and then show them that they can bring that forward and even into the next generation. And right now, we're falling behind when it comes to debt education. And we need to go back to the basics of what we already had. Even my dad read and off of signs, off the highway. That's how you learn how to read. And for myself, it was a challenge for myself because I'm dyslexic. So I had to overcome that. But the thing is, we need to find ways to bring the best out of Kentucky, and that's the way to do it.
Candidate Cooper.
So, as I said before, if teachers are teaching things that could make some students feel personal responsibility for historic wrongs, that's woke teaching. It's unacceptable, and the teachers or the parents needs to be brought to their attention. They need to bring it to the administration's attention. The administration needs to be bringing it to the Kentucky Board of Education and Kentucky Department of Education's attention and handling it that way. We need to be saying the pledge back in schools again. I remember every day doing it when I was in school. I have two little girls, and neither one of them know much about the Constitution. They don't know much about the preamble. They have no idea what it is or why it was even written. To me, that's hurtful, especially being in the military. So how would I defeat wokeness? Like I just said, it's a group effort. Teachers, parents, students, we all got to work together to defeat wokeness.
Candidate Clark.
Okay, you know, hearts are not changed by government force. Like I said earlier, these people, you're not going to defeat them. What we needed to focus on there is winning them. And so that would require the church to not be so lazy and try to defer things to government force. But at the end of my term, how would I quantify that I had defeated wokeness? That was part of the question. And I like to focus on the individual. That's the way our country was founded. It was focused on individual liberty and justice for all, I believe one thing says. So, you know, no matter how strange someone wants to live, as long as they're peaceful and they don't try to hurt me and they don't try to force me to go along with their ideas, you know, that's on them. That's fine. But when these things are infiltrated in our schools and try to force on us, that's wrong. So I would look for individual liberty at the end of the term.
30 seconds. Can I get 30
Candidate
seconds?
DeVore.
Yes, sir. I want to somehow change the Department of Education where it's pro-parent and pro-student and keep them on the path of success. It needs to change because it's not helping at all. So get rid of Mr. Glass, he's fired, and put somebody in there who has a heart and passion for kids and parents and do what's best for Kentucky.
Mark, you've got the next question. Any other rebuttals? Mark, you've got the next question.
Thanks, Evan. Northern Kentucky legislators introduced legislation in the 2023 session to do away with Certificate of Need, which particularly impacts Northern Kentucky. What are your thoughts on Certificate of Need, and how would you reform it or get rid of it?
Candidate Cooper, we'll start with you.
Excellent. I don't, like the top candidates, I don't have a staff. So I have to do all my own research. And I don't mind it because I love it. I love learning new stuff. Based on what I've researched, Certificate of Need prevents jobs, plain and simple. I was glad that, you know, the laws that prohibit healthcare providers from entering new markets or expanding their organizations with the approval of legislation. Because of some of these laws, you know, Breathitt County's lost ambulance service, Knott County's lost their ambulance service. And in Northern Kentucky, there's a lawsuit, Legacy Medical Transport. They can bring people to Kentucky, but they can't bring people out of Kentucky. I know that there's some people who's for Certificate of Need. I am against it, and I will not sign any orders or laws that, you know, is pro Certificate of Need unless they can show that it's going to help build jobs.
Candidate Clark.
Okay, so I am a free market capitalist, and I believe that's what the country was founded on. And when you look at Certificate of Need and what it does and how it is used to create a monopoly or a few monopolies, it's a socialist program. And, you know, one thing that Trump said was this country will never be a socialist country. But we already have a lot of socialist programs in this country, and that's one of them. So, you know, I would definitely look at, I'm all for using executive orders the way they were meant to be used to block bad laws. I know some of these guys are not, but I want real liberty now, like day one, you know, of the administration. I want to start blocking a bunch of terrible laws, and Certificate of Need is one of them. Without that competition, you don't get the excellence that Kentuckians deserve in your healthcare industry and so many other industries. So that's definitely out.
Candidate DeVore.
Yeah, so it goes deeper than that when it comes to Certificate of Need. Even if you eliminate that, we have a nursing shortage. We have a doctor shortage. We have all these different shortages when it comes to health care. We need to find a way to expand that opportunity because when anything happens and a person walks into the hospital, they expect quality health care. And if you don't have enough staff to back that up, then we have a problem. Even in Bowling Green, they're building a nursing home. And it's fantastic for the veterans, but they need to staff it. And that's where we have a staffing problem when it comes to Commonwealth Kentucky. And the quality of health care is something we need to look at for all Kentuckians. They deserve it. And the kids deserve quality health care, even down to the baby that's born. So yes, I want to eliminate that, but I want to make sure we have quality individuals that can man those stations, as they say in the Navy, and focus on what is best for Kentucky.
Mark, it's back to you.
At the end of the legislative session, House leadership removed 6 legislators from committee assignments. What are your thoughts on that move, and what would you do as governor?
Candidate Clark, we'll start with you.
Okay, yes, I know a lot about this. Some of these people were my friends, and they were punished for doing the right thing. And what's going on is our Republican supermajority, I think we have like 80% Republican in the House and Senate in Frankfort, and a lot of them are great people, but the ones that are in leadership are just plain and simple, they are corrupt, and they are controlling the system, much like McConnell has done in D.C. for many years. So unfortunately, as governor, there would not be a whole lot of authority that I would have over who sits on what committees, but definitely I would use my soapbox to air out the dirty laundry and let people know what's going on, and endorse opponents in primaries to get rid of the corruption. People are fed up with those type of games. People are fed up with that stuff, and I think they're ready to know who it is and go after them.
Candidate DeVore.
So when it comes to term limits, I think it'd be one of the best ways to get rid of career politicians. And folks can get involved, even down to the lowest denominator when it comes to school board. If they really want to make a difference in our life, that's where to start at. But when it comes to relationship between the legislation and myself, we need to have a combined effort to find out what's best for Kentucky and leave their personal efforts in the backyard and focus on what you can do for our citizens is better than saying what I'm going to do to build my own retirement fund, which is just, right now, the pension is just a massacre of a mess, let alone when it comes to legislation and talking about how to bring out quality of life in Kentucky. So, yeah, we need to build a way to focus on the same thing that both of us could do at the same time, which means raise it up and make Kentucky be great.
Candidate Cooper.
I know I have to work with legislation as being the governor, and I want to have a good relationship with everyone in the House and with everyone in the Senate. The leadership, there's a lot of people in the House and in the Senate that are corrupt. I'm just going to say it. How could the Republican Party of Kentucky accept a $1 million Pfizer, check to help make a building? Like Mr. DeVore said, I too am for term or age limits. I had one senator tell me that he's thought the idea of age limits, which I think would be great, because I think there's been 3 or 4 people at the federal level who's not been able to vote on things because of their health, because they're late 80s. And again, as Mr. DeVore said about the pension, our pension, that's been my number one issue. I'd like to rebuttal so I could have another 30 seconds. Our pension is, Kentucky's one of the worst states to retire in. And the pension has been my number one issue since November. We have a $42 billion in unfunded liability, and I'm the only candidate who has a plan to fix the pension, who has a plan that has been launched on my Facebook profile, David Cooper for Kentucky Governor. And I urge teachers and Kentucky employees and state employees, county employees, to take a look at it.
30 seconds, please.
Candidate DeVore.
So again, we need to find ways to have the common goals, like I said. And the point of the matter is that every time they get in there and they're doing their thing and they get reelected over and over again, I think they lose their reality of putting Kentucky first and them last. And that's what we need to do, making sure Kentucky number one in all areas of life.
Candidate Clark.
Sure, I'll take 30 seconds. There are some states, I believe Washington is one, and they actually send out pamphlets to every registered voter that tells something about each candidate that is on the ballot. And this is not done by the candidate or anything like that. And so I think something like that would be great.
That'd be great.
Give a little fairness and maybe get rid of some of these corrupt ones that the question was about.
Sherry, you're up next.
Republicans control all constitutional seats in Kentucky. They also hold the supermajorities in both chambers of the state legislature and with the power to override any veto or action of the governor. Both U.S. Senate seats and 5 of the 6 congressional seats are held by Republicans. The only seat Republicans do not control is the governor's office. What additional impact can Republicans have on state government if they also hold the governor's office?
Candidate DeVore, we'll start with you.
By focusing on the same priorities that I have and legislation has, and then it comes down to making sure that every Commonwealth folk have the same quality of life. If we can come up with those constituents, especially when it comes to the school system, and giving parents a chance to speak and protect their kids and show the value of life itself, then to me, we could be number one in areas of economics, when it comes to take care of our senior citizens, when it comes to education, when it comes to take care of our roads. All these things go hand in hand. And as governor of Kentucky, we can focus on that and making sure that we can be better than we're especially under Andy, okay? Andy don't really care what's going on. All he cares about is his own pockets and his own pursuit of life endeavors. So, yes, as governor, I want to make sure that we put our Kentuckians first and foremost. God first, the Kentuckians second, and me last.
Candidate Cooper.
So Daniel Cameron, Ryan Quarles, and Mike Harmon have all done excellent jobs for their offices. Daniel and Ryan do say, though, many times in some of their stump speeches, that they have went up against Beshear and his policies. I think with the Republican governor and with the Republican other seats, there will be less suing the governor. There'll be less suing the other executive offices, and there will be more collaboration. And, you know, as a good leader, that's what you need. You're supposed to be surrounding yourself with good people. Now, I know that, you know, elections, you can't really do that. You get who the people want you to have. But I feel that just not being sued and wasting taxpayers' money on things would be the best thing, just to working together.
Candidate Clark.
Okay, I really feel like we are headed for some troubled times, especially looking at Washington, D.C., and how over the last 20 years our debt has creeped up to something like $33 or $34 trillion, our national debt. Washington, D.C.'s concerns are everywhere but America. You know, to me, we need a good Republican governor that will get things done to bolster Kentucky and like I've talked about so many times, cutting the red tape to allow us to get back into these industries and even dominate these industries so that we can get prepared for whatever storm is coming. You know, some people say, oh, well, we've heard that and heard that, but we're getting ready to see the dollar crash in a major way, and D.C. is not going to be the help to us that they really have been while we've been a welfare state. So we need a Republican governor to bolster Kentucky.
And what Ronald Reagan said about the 9 feared words, says, we are the government, I'm here to help you. Come on. We need to find ways to connect with our senior citizens and citizens across Kentucky to help grow and prosper our state. And by doing that, we have communication on both ends.
Mark, you're up next.
Thanks, Evan. Maintaining relationships with the legislature and the judicial branch is crucial as governor. How would you balance those relationships?
Candidate Cooper, we'll start with you.
So, repeat the question, please.
Maintaining relationships with the legislature and the judicial branch is crucial as governor. How would you balance those relationships?
Yeah, so bringing the same leadership aspects that I have in the military to the governor's office. As I've said many times before tonight and along the election trail, we need roundtable discussions. We need more sit-downs and not just, hey, this is how we're going to do it. Well, no, we're not. Well, I'm going to sue you. Roundtable discussions allows all points of a problem, all points of an issue, to get different types of answers, and just to form the best answer for Kentucky. And so, yeah, I mean, short answer, I'm just going to do what I do as the military leader and just bring my leadership aspects to the governor's office.
Candidate Clark.
So I was raised up on the golden rule, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yep.
And that would be my policy as far as I can take it. But, you know, the Constitution is going to be the gold standard. If there is a legislator and they want to ban some firearms or do something like that, you know, I'm not going to be yelling and screaming at them. You know, I can cordially oppose them, but there's not going to be any kind of a working relationship with some kind of policy like that. What I mean to say is, relationships are great as long as it doesn't mean we got to compromise our rights on something. So I would draw the line at that. I would say, you know, you have your ideas and you're wrong, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be a bully about it. We're just not going to work together on that. So reciprocal, though.
Candidate DeVore.
So when it comes down to it is that we are servants of the people. And this is where legislation kind of forget that point. They're up there going like, they're isolationists and don't realize that they need to reconnect with the common folks. And then one of the things I want to do is I want to do a sit down with all the folks across Kentucky and have a talk and saying, hey, you need to do the same thing as state legislators. You need to get back to your roots. You need to focus on what is best for your community and what is best for the community when it comes to raising the education level, when it comes to common sense, basic common sense of taking care of our parents, okay, our senior citizens. These things that we could do, but we have to have that same correlation. And if I disagree with them, we can agree to disagree, but we're going to do it behind closed doors and saying, now, tell me what the heck's going on here and how we can fix this. And then we'll come out and we're going to focus on what is best for Kentucky, shake our hands and move forward and bring the values up that we deserve.
Mark?
Thanks, Evan. In 2022, legislation placed a pilot charter school in Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky University chose not to be the authorizer, leaving the legislation in doubt. What are your thoughts on charter schools, and how would you move forward with the legislation?
Candidate Clark, we'll start with you.
Okay, so the charter schools, I'm assuming this is kind of a school choice question. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, there is a constitutional issue with using our tax dollars to fund private or charter schools, unfortunately. And we had a great bill for a CEO, a Commonwealth Educational Opportunity Fund, where folks could put in, it's like a tax incentive. They could put in some money to this fund and it would give them a tax break. And that was going to be a way to work around to fund these schools. And I thought it was a great idea. Again, going back to like the certificate of need issue, when we don't have competition, then there's no drive for excellence. And I think we need that in our schools just like we need that in our hospitals and healthcare.
Candidate DeVore.
Yes, JCPS has $2.2 billion. Now, the point is, yeah, we do an amendment on the Constitution where that the money will follow the child and making sure that the parents have the opportunity and the right to pick what is the best quality education for that child, no matter where they're at. Because we need to focus on what is best for them, and in turn, we raise the value of Kentucky at the same time. So yes, we need to find ways to say, if you want to go to a private school or a public school can be great, but there's got to be some balance here. And folks that have money to go to Catholic school, they'll take care of that, okay? But the point of the matter is that we got to give the parents the choice to do what they need to do and want to do for their child. And that's what comes down to it.
Candidate Cooper.
I want to echo a little bit off what both these guys said. You know, I'm for school choice. Your money should be following your child. Basically, parents need to know what's going on in their schools, and teachers need to know that they're protected for when, you know, the children aren't doing well and they're trying to help and they're putting out notes. And, you know, we have so many tools available now there shouldn't be any children being left behind. I have the Remind app on my phone so that my teacher has direct communication with me. So if something's going on, my wife takes care of my oldest daughter's grades and stuff, and she's like, hey, you need to turn this in. So we have so many tools, and just, you know, teachers need to know that they're protected for when children do bad and they show all these things that they've tried to do that you know, they're protected. They're not going to get yelled at and stuff. But yeah, school choice, your money should follow your child.
Candidate DeVore?
Yeah, so again, it should be at the parents' feet on what they can do when it comes to options. And having this option as school choice is fantastic. But if you don't give them options and you limit them their possibilities, it's going to do is just lower the child's education and they create a liability. Next thing you know, they're going to be in prison because they don't have the right skills and opportunities to succeed as a productive citizen.
Sherry, you've got the next question.
What do you feel that Governor Beshear did well during the COVID pandemic?
Candidate DeVore, we'll start with you.
Nothing, to be honest with you. He closed down churches. He closed down businesses. You walk out here and you see these empty stores out there and you're going like, what happened? And to me, he did nothing right when it comes to the pandemic. He tried to control, he tried to be a Nero and watch Louisville burn down when it comes to economic and growth. All it did was separate our kids, separate ourselves. If you walk down the street, all they're doing is looking into their cell phone and saying, talking to like we can do today. We lost that opportunity, we lost that language, we lost that connection. We need to get back to building relationships with each other. And to me, no, I give him an F, a flat F, period.
Candidate Cooper.
Short answer, nothing. I was on deployment, unfortunately, during the entire 2020 COVID pandemic. I've actually been asked this question before by a few constituents and a best friend of mine. And he said, what would you have done different? And my answer was this: there would have been no mandates. I would have left it up to, again, the county officials. I would have left it up to, the businesses if they wanted to stay open, and that's fine. The extent of mandates, I guess I shouldn't say I wouldn't have done no mandates, is I would have just put out, even though we know the masks don't work, but it makes some people feel safe, and if that's what it takes, then I would have said, have some masks and latex gloves and hand sanitizer available at your door. That would have been the extent of it. But other than that, no hardcore mandates, no vaccinations, and yeah, he got an F. Good job, Bob.
Candidate Clark.
So what Beshear did well during the pandemic was pandering to his base. He was very good at building the medical fascist cult that he did that would support him no matter what, no matter how the facts came out against him. There was a picture that I was sharing around for a long time of him with his mask pulled down up in some elderly woman's face, holding on to her, right in her face when, in the same time, we were not allowed to sing at my wife's granddad's funeral because singing spread the disease. So, there is never, ever a disease that would warrant the government to take away any of your rights, not even on the county level, none of those things. The government should have just provided accurate information about the risks and precautions, the end.
All right, I want to go back one last question because I want to give Candidate Clark a chance to answer this one because it's regionally, I think, important. It was the first question we asked. So, Candidate Clark, I'll start with you, and then I'll give you guys kind of a chance to answer this again. The simple question here is, how are you earning the votes of Northern Kentuckians?
Okay, so I visited Boone County several times, especially the Tea Party people, and they're kind of my sort of folks, the Ron Paul types. But really, honestly, I'm not going to get caught giving special attention to one area of Kentucky or another. And I hope that maybe I lose some votes, maybe I gain some votes for that. But by supporting your communities and your local leaders, then that puts it in your hands and the voters' hands that elect those people. But the Northern Kentucky people, I guess the way I would try to gain the most of them would be to say I really like to align myself with Ron Paul in the Fed, all those types of things.
Candidate DeVore.
Yes, one of the things I love about traveling, and it's the journey right now, going from county to county, listen to the fantastic stories that these folks have. We make that connection. If you make that connection and you have the same ideas and say, how can we help our senior citizens? They're going to go, yes. I mean, we're taking our money and we want to live a better life. We want a better school system. Yes, we want that. Yes, we want to make sure that businesses have a right and opportunity to grow and prosper without being taken by fees and taxes. Yes, we want to make sure that even the bourbon industry is fine. I don't know why they're taking away the bourbon money, because we could take that and put it over and put it into the pension plan, because we're like $46 billion in debt. It's just crazy. So yes, we got to find a way to make those connections, to sit down and have a cup of coffee and just talk and saying, hey, you're my brother, you're my sister, and let's do what's best for Kentucky. And next thing you know, in 10 years, you see Kentucky #1 in all aspects of life.
Candidate Cooper.
So I think I have a slight advantage in Northern Kentucky than the other candidates being from here, but I don't expect to win Northern Kentucky just because of that. I want to earn the trust and the respect, which would then equal earning the vote of Northern Kentuckians, just like I want to do that all around the state. Here in Northern Kentucky, though, I do, and not just Northern Kentucky, everywhere, if I go to a gas station, or if I go to a restaurant, or the grocery store, if I go to Kroger, I'll talk to people and I'm like, hey, what are you tired of with Kentucky politics? And do you follow Kentucky politics? Are you Republican? And they'll tell me they're tired of the fighting, they're tired of the corruption, they're tired of rich people thinking they should be in charge. And I always ask them, well, what if there was a blue-collar candidate who was also a military service member? And they go, just stop. That's what I want. I want someone who's like the yes. So, with those two things, I feel like that I'm going to have a big advantage. But I also want to continue the sit-downs that we're having on the campaign trail afterwards as well.
All right, we are coming to closing statement time here. Yeah. Oh, did you need? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to add.
30-second rebuttal. Yep.
Yeah, just real quick. I did visit the Optimist Club up here in Boone County a while back, and one of the things they mentioned is a lot of the Cincinnati crime bleeding over into Northern Kentucky, and so I believe that is something that a governor should address. And I thought about this. What could we possibly do, right? So I thought, well, when we have to arrest them and house them in our facility, we should send them a bill, or something. So there was one little idea.
All right, so we're at closing statements time here, and since I didn't give you opening statements, I don't know if you caught that, we've got you all here, so I'm going to try and work this timer and give you 2 minutes for your closing statements. We're going to start in reverse order from how we started with the first question. So, Candidate Clark, I'm going to start with you. I'm trying to get this timer right and not buzz you.
Okay. You're going to start on 2 minutes?
I've got 1 minute, so I'm going to have to
Oh,
cut
okay.
it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sure.
Pay no attention to the 1 minute there.
All right. So I am an inventor. I'm an idea man. I've have several inventions and built a thriving company off of that. But I'm also a fed-up, hardworking patriot. And, I've watched our country be degraded over the last couple of decades, and then it accelerated over the last 3 years. And I've got a lot of ideas of how to fix these things, but one of the simplest ideas is just getting back to our founding, getting back to the Constitution. I was a victim of government overload in 2018 when a corrupt CPS tried to take away my children, and fought them representing myself and beat them and turned around and sued them. And when we did that, we got a whistleblower and found out that they had targeted us for our religious beliefs, and they were some left-wing activists. So, this is what woke me up. We talked about wokeness earlier. It's good to be a certain kind of woke. It's good to be awake, And that's what woke me up, that we are not as free as our founders meant us to be, and we're not as free as we ought to be, and it's not going to be hand-delivered to us, especially by Andy Beshear. We're going to have to fight for it, and we're running out of time. So we don't have time to work with a corrupt legislature that sat by while Beshear ruled as a tyrant, and even our Attorney General waited 6 weeks to do anything about it, and other elected officials Some of them even endorsed these things, and even Kraft, bragged on these things. So we're out of time for those kind of things, and we need a governor that knows how to use the authority of the governor's office and executive orders to block bad laws, block these bad things coming down from D.C., and set Kentucky free from Washington, D.C.
Candidate DeVore, you're next.
I have a passion for people. I want to see Kentucky be great in many different areas. I mean, a good example of that now, I made a deal with my daughter to do ROTC for a semester, so give her a taste of what's going on. And to me, I think that should be given an opportunity for all kids at freshman level. If they don't like it, that's fine, but they need structure in their lives. And you got to get up on time and go to get a job. You got to be able to do all these things. You got to have priorities set for yourself. A lot of kids have no clue what's going on. I didn't have a clue. I went in the Navy at 19, okay? So the point of the matter is that how can we make Kentucky great? And those areas, like economics, making sure that we can take mechanisms such as beef, process it in Kentucky as a great way to show quality of food and lower the prices. And instead of having chickens growing over in China and doing whatever they want to, and they come back with 3 legs and for whatever it is, but we don't have the same quality when it comes to inspection on food.
You have another minute if you want it.
Okay, thank you. But overall, to me, I want to be in that shoes of that Commonwealth folk and saying, what can I do for you? And I want to listen to them, and they're going to tell me. I go down to Boston Community Place and eat lunch, break bread with senior citizens. This is cool. Listen to them and hear their stories and all this stuff. We need to come back to that kind of atmosphere where you can go around the table. That's been lost, where families can sit there and talk about, how was your day? What happened? And the point of the matter is that we go back to that basic common denominator of strengthening the family. Now you strengthen your community. Now you're making Kentucky great. And that's where we need to be at. Find the basics of putting God first and our family, and then finding ways to help our neighbor. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And no matter who they are. Okay, PPP meeting on Friday mornings, man, that's awesome. And we talk about those issues.
Candidate Cooper.
I want to take a few seconds to thank Channel 9, the Kenton County Republican Party, Link Northern Kentucky, the historic Lincoln Grant Scholar House, audience members, Shane for putting this together. He's been a friend since 2014 when I joined the Northern Kentucky Republicans. Evan and Mark and Sherry, I want to thank you all for being here as well. I'm a blue collar. I've been a blue collar worker all of my life. I joined the Kentucky Army National Guard when I was 17, and this June will be 23 years. I have an associate's degree in business management from community college. I feel like I am the most like every Kentucky resident, majority of Kentucky residents. So, I mean, that's why I feel like that I would be the more popular candidate. But the closing, I hope everyone knows that there's not one candidate that has all the answers. There's not. But a great leader surrounds themselves with experts. I'm Northern Kentucky's clear choice, and there shouldn't be a question about it. I'll make everyone proud. I won't take orders from Washington, D.C. or Frankfurt elites. I won't be a bully. If you go to my website right now or my Facebook page, you're not going to see any FJB or LGB or anything that's counterintuitive to working with Democrats. I'll also defend and stand up for what's right for Kentucky and her people. Northern Kentucky and the rest of Kentucky will never take a back seat to any other issue. They'll always be my top priority. I'll always remember, and I will remind others that we serve you, you don't serve us. All the candidates have good ideas, and if I were to win, I'm not going to limit the fact that it's not my idea to incorporate it, and I would hope that the other candidates would work with me if it was their idea. Thank you.
And that sound means that is our time tonight. Gentlemen, I mean it when I say it. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your discussion, for your responses. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. I want to thank our questioners, Sherry and Mark, as well, and big thanks again to the Kenton County Republican Party. my coworkers at WCPO 9, Link NKY, St. Elizabeth Healthcare, and the Northern Kentucky Community Action Commission for this space that we're in tonight. Please join us again tomorrow night, same time, same place. More candidates, responses to questions ahead of that May 16th primary. We are in the home stretch almost.
That's right.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Thanks for being here.